Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to Adverse Stars podcast. All my loyal listeners, thank you for continued support. And remember, click that subscribe button, everybody. It's an amazing episode because Phillip Kennedy Johnson returns to the mothership. We talk the Incredible Hulk and John Stewart. Come aboard as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Mr. Johnson. Thank you so much for coming to Adverse Stars podcast.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me back.
It's totally my pleasure. You're my favorite guest, so it's very good to talk with you, sir.
Oh, shucks.
So, having written for so many high-profile characters at DC and Marvel, how do you continue to challenge yourself as a writer?
I want to challenge myself. I take on more gigs than I should. That is honestly the reason or the answer. Like I don't know. I got a couple of really cool opportunities that I just kind of couldn't turn down, and I'm just trying to make it all work. I'm still doing the Army thing, and I've got like 5 books going, and I'm just drowning. But it's all stuff I love, man. I'm not really willing to give any of it up, So yeah, just doing the best I can to keep up. But I get to write Action Comics still, which is like the dream gig. And then at Marvel, they gave me a book that I could not be more stoked about, especially with this creative team. God, I didn't even know how good. I always knew that Matt Wilson was great.
Yeah.
But I did not know how great he was. He's making Nick's work even better. It's just insane how good those guys are. And Corey Pettit, the letterer, is a like straight up full member of the team that's also contributing a ton to the final product. Anyway, the editors, everybody's been amazing. Even the stuff in the back of the book, they're giving me opportunities to put back matter at the end of the stories.
Yeah.
We're going to see that in issue 3. There's a thing in the end. There's a thing called The Remembrances of Eldest, in which we talk about some of the creatures we're going to be meeting.
Ooh.
That's really fun. We got a letters column coming up.
Oh, I love when they bring back the letters columns. And I'll say I am one of those nerds who will send out a letter to the editors. So if you do have a letter column back, I will totally be writing letters to your book.
Yeah, 100% do it. I will say my the stuff, like the letters are editor curated. I don't see every single one. I got a stack of them the other day, and I got to answer them like tonight. But when I got them, Michelle, my assistant editor, was like, "There's just a few of them," and there's kind of a lot. I was like, "Damn!" But apparently, there was a lot more. I guess the ones that they sent were pretty representative of the crop. Sadly, I don't see every single one. I'd love to see them all. But it's probably best because as I say, my bandwidth is pretty non-existent, so it makes sense. But yeah, it's just overwhelming how awesome the response has been from readers, man. I don't think I've ever had a response quite this strong on a book before. And this book went from being just a really awesome, cool, exciting opportunity to a legit dream book, where between the creative team and the stuff they're letting me do in it, and how cool and cooperative editorial has been. Their notes are great, and like the readers, it's just been amazing.
Now with the Hulk, you're coming after some big runs of the Hulk. You've had Al Ewing had that big run for a while. Johnny Cates knocked it out for a bit. What's it like to come after their stories, and how much do you have to recognize what they did in your story, and how much have you been allowed to just kind of do your own thing?
I have been allowed to do my own thing. I pitched them. The things I pitched was basically exactly what we're doing, just Age of Monsters. I wanted there were a couple of elements from old school Marvel comics that I wanted to do. For one thing, I love the original pitch, the original concept of what the Hulk is a monster book. Like they were trying to kind of take a step away from the usual superhero stuff that they were doing and make a different kind of book. And at some point, it became more of a superhero thing again. But I love the original, like Frankenstein / Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of thing that they wanted to do. And that was, that original mission statement became the skeleton of what Immortal Hulk was. That Immortal Hulk captured that original horror take so well. And in fact, by the biggest challenge, you asked me how I challenged myself. The biggest challenge to doing Hulk out of the gate was, man, Immortal was so goddamn good how do I, and I mean, Donnie and Ryan's run is also extremely, well executed. To me, like I just love horror, so like the Immortal run really spoke to me. And I was like, how do I do another book that's not just aping what Al Ewing
Mm.
did? Because I mean, it just nailed the shit out of it. And I kind of let it sit with me for a bit. I thought about the direction that Immortal had taken and the vibe that Donny Cates had taken with his. And honestly, that was that was a really good run too, and it was so representative of Donnie's work. Of just like the bombastic superhero, over the top visuals, and just I don't know, it was great. But I wanted to take elements of that story and acknowledge it in the story, but also kind of continue what Al and Joe did with Immortal. So, anyways, like, how do we make it different? And in the end, I kind of found myself kind of veering towards other books that were not Hulk at all, like
Mm.
Hellboy and Hellblazer, and this really amazing adaptation of Beowulf by Garcia and Rabid, and that was unbelievably beautifully done. I don't even have a copy of it now because I'm always giving it away. I've had a few copies and now I have zero. I need to get another one. But that's to me, Beowulf is one of like a handful of books that just to me are the consummate graphic novel. Like this is what comics can do. This is what
Mm.
comics can be. And I want to do something like that with Hulk. And it's different. I mean, doing any kind of Marvel book is different than than a big fat volume, Beowulf adaptation. But there were things in that book I wanted to emulate. Just the vibe of it is so great and gritty and visually captivating. And I love the way that Hellboy is just kind of he's just kind of walking the earth like Kane from Kung Fu, and like these elements of folklore and monster stories kind of revolve around him. Like he kind of walks
Mm.
through and these things kind of come out of nowhere, and he sees the darker side of the world to which the rest of us are blind. I wanted to see that. I mean, for me, that's Hulk too. Um, and there's another element of those old books that I wanted to bring out, and that is the very short arcs, like where there's either one issue or two issues, and that's the story. I had a lot of those when I was a kid, like Spider-Man team up type stuff, where he would meet a character, or he'd meet up with them if you already knew him, and they would have like an adventure together, and then he'd move on. And I love that setup. My most beloved Spider-Man story ever is this one shot that's mostly about the villain, but by the end of it, you got a much more complicated view of that villain. And at the end of the issue, the story's done.
Mm.
I thought that was really dope, and I don't see that much in comics now. Usually, it's about much longer arcs. So it was a challenge to make like a long arc, like quite a long arc that's also made up of much smaller stories that stand on their own.
So when you're obviously when you're writing for Marvel, is you're doing an ongoing series, but Marvel also has a tendency to have short ongoing series, 30 issues, maybe 40 issues at most, maybe 50 at max. So how many issues ahead are you thinking when you're writing the Hulk?
um, they they asked me, what did they ask me for? They asked me for an outline just to see where it was going to go, like what the arcs were going to be. I think they asked me for, probably shouldn't say this, but I think they said like 12 issues. That doesn't mean they were going to end at 12.
Right.
But I gave them one that was exponentially longer than that, and and they didn't have any complaints. So,
So how much longer was it?
um, I think what I sent them was 30 something, but that's
Mm.
not. But there was still no end in sight. Like it's not like there was an ending issue. I just love blowing out the monstrous side of the Marvel universe. Like there's a lot of characters that I remember from back in the day that were very cool and sometimes kind of obscure. You don't necessarily see them again. I'd like to bring out some of those again. I'd like to bring out some of the more beloved characters like Man Thing and Ghost Rider especially. I really want to do that Ghost Rider one.
Mm.
And there's other ones I shouldn't spoil yet, but yeah, there's going to be there's a big mix of obscure monsters that I love, um, quite famous monsters that I want to use, and new creations of my own. And I probably have more new stuff than anything else. I'm trying not to just make it all originals because I want the old school Marvel fans to have those touchstones. Like, yes, I'm getting rewarded because I read, in Doctor Strange issue, whatever. So I'm trying to bring out some of the old favorites so that the hardcore old school nerds get something that they recognize that not everyone does, and maybe give a fresh coat of paint on something that we haven't seen in a long time. But probably the thing I'm enjoying the most is the new creations.
What do you think when you're talking about bringing in new monsters? Are these monsters like monsters of science, or are these monsters like supernatural, like Werewolf by Night type monsters? Dracula.
No, that is the way primarily. Well, that's one big way in which I wanted to separate this book from Immortal, because I knew if we did another horror take, the fandom would invariably be like, he's just copying what Al did, and I didn't want to do that. I mean, there's a version that I could have done in which that would have been a fair criticism, but the Al Ewing, Joe Bennett version of Immortal Hulk was a very kind of if there's a story that kind of wraps up, or like I think about that first arc, that first trade worth of story, where there were some shorter, like it was like a story per issue, more or less, and they did tie together, but it was mostly like you just open up any issue of the first trade and you can just pick it up. There was I forget his name, like the skeleton dude, like glowing green, like that thing, and like the lab, especially where the doctor like had him chopped up in little pieces and separated in various jars in the lab, and then it was all a trick, and he came together and like enveloped the doctor and became himself again around the doctor and crushed him. Stuff like that. It was a very like black science kind of take, like black science horror, like a dark kind of take that way. This is more like mystical horror. This is about the like not monsters that come out of labs as much as monsters that come out of that walk out of rivers and potter's fields and old dead coal mining towns. And it's one thing is just the vibe of the horror that it is, but it's also the setting, because the whole thing, at least for the foreseeable future, like every bit of that outline I sent them, that all takes place in the American South.
That sounds absolutely awesome. Well, one thing as well that they play around with monsters when it comes to the Hulk is the idea of the bigger monster, and I think it was Case who played more into it. Is it Banner the bigger monster, or is it Hulk who's the bigger monster, or is it what's they're going after the bigger, or the government chasing them who's the bigger monster? So, in your mind, how are you playing with those ideas?
I mean, Hulk's the monster. In this story, Banner's constantly being hunted by Hulk, like because of what happened. That was the biggest contribution of the Cates Otley run, is that in that, like, Banner's kind of fucked up in that story. He did some dark stuff. He straight up enslaved Hulk inside of his own mind. And that's not Banner as I see him. And it's set, and now we're in the situation after the events of that run. Hulk is free, and is he mad. He's out for like revenge against Banner. And Banner, if anything, is kind of regretful for what he did. He thought he could control the monster, and now he realizes he's wrong. So he's God, how do I explain it? I wanted to see Hulk. Like Hulk is the guy that thought he had it all figured out. Like like if it was you ever see the movie Blow? Johnny Depp?
Yes.
So there's that period in the movie where he's the big successful drug dealer. He's on cloud nine. He's got the hot wife, and he's making millions, and everything's going just great, And that was kind of the Starship Hulk line where everything was going awesome, and he's like, I've got to figure it out. I have mastered the Hulk. Now Hulk works for me. And now this is more like the end of the movie. This is after that. Like things have gone horribly wrong. And now he's on the run. He's like, I thought I could defeat this thing. And I was kidding myself the whole time. So he's on the run. So now it's more like a proper monster movie, kind of like those original ideas that the Hulk was born out of, So if you were to take a more modern kind of monster movie, it's more like It Follows or The Ring or something, where he's just trying not to get, or the Smile, that more recent thing that came out. Where he's on the run. There's this thing that's hunting him, and sometimes he'll see Hulk emerging in reality. You'll see like Hulk, because you'll see green eyes in the shadows, or somebody that he's talking to will suddenly be speaking with Hulk's voice, and yeah, oh my god, and he has to get away before he comes out and just destroys everything and kills everyone. So yeah, wanted to see Hulk more like a metaphor for addiction, kind of where like somebody who's trying to master himself, somebody who's like, if only I could if only I could control this element of myself, then everything would be okay. If only I could stop drinking, if only I could stop gambling, if only I could figure out a way to wake up in the morning, if only I could, not get so pissed at work, if only I could, whatever the thing is that somebody's trying to deal with in themselves, whatever they're trying to master in themselves. Whenever they get close to the thing that they want, like I can almost get it, I can see it, I can almost have it, and then they black out. I mean, they wake up and they're in this puddle of vomit, and there's a half-eaten deer there, and they're covered in whatever, and like, oh my god, what just happened? And that side of themselves that they hate or resent or are afraid of has emerged and just broken everything down and ruined their life, and all they can do is run again.
So when the Hulk is thinking about, because you said Hulk wants revenge on Banner, but in many ways Hulk is still sharing the same body on some level as Banner. And what is the complication on Hulk on how far he can take a revenge before he's kind of fighting himself or itself?
I mean, we saw in the Cates run that Banner can lock Hulk inside of his mind. So why can't Hulk do that?
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, Hulk is at the point where he's like, you know what? Fuck this guy. I'm tired of sharing a body. This body's mine now. And he's setting out to take him over completely. Like he's getting more and more control, and Banner's getting less and less, and Hulk is just trying to lock him up. So he keeps locking him up. We kind of saw him in that nightmare in issue 2. Issue 2? Yeah, issue 2, where Banner is inside the skeleton of that gigantic crow thing, and he's like, that's his like prison. He can't get out, and he's trying to get out. So he's constantly getting locked up inside of his own mind and trying to escape. That was Hulk's version of that prison that he had Banner in before, or Banner had Hulk in before. And Banner's trying to escape inside of his own mind and get out. And then when he does that, then he runs, and at some point Hulk grabs him again and takes him back under.
So this is basically, and we're definitely focusing on the smart Hulk and how much of that intelligence does Hulk have? Because there's always that play when the Hulk is he like the intelligent Hulk? Is he the kind of like the more brutish Hulk? This one is definitely going to be leaning into the smart Hulk.
No, it's more. Well, it's not the baby talk Hulk. That's the only. Okay, I don't really care for it when Hulk talks like a baby. So we're not doing that. I don't really like it when he talks like Poindexter. So we're not doing that either. I don't like it when he talks like the mob guy.
Oh, what they call it? Joe Fixit.
Joe Fixit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying those stories are not good. They're great. But if we're talking about what I want to do with this, I mean, one of the cooler moments I can remember in a Hulk film is when towards the beginning of the Ed Norton one, in which he's in the bottling plant and the guy's going after him. And we're mostly in shadow and steam and everything. We don't see him yet. We haven't really seen Hulk yet. And he reaches out and grabs somebody, and then it gets thrown. And you hear this rumbling sound. And the first time I heard it, I didn't realize he was speaking, but he said, "Leave me alone." That's just so badass. I don't know. That's what I want. I want him to barely speak, and when he does, it's just like a couple of words. Yeah, anyway, you'll see more of that in the next issue, like just how little Hulk says. I think that one of the, this is not the same thing, but if you look at the Conan movies, the first Conan the Barbarian movie, Conan had this gravitas to him. And a big part of that is that he didn't speak for a long time. Even when he did, he spoke very, very little. Towards the end, he started to speak more. And to me, that kind of ruined it. But it's not ruined. It's still a great film. But he talked a lot more in the second one. And that movie sucked ass. And not just because he was speaking. There's also other much larger complications. But anyway, that movie just breaks my heart. But then even when they made it again more recently with Jason Momoa, that dude looks the part. That could have been really cool. But he spoke in my opinion, he spoke way too often, and he just kind of sounds like a bro. Compared to what I wanted to hear from him, which is almost nothing. I wanted Conan to be more of like Scar like in the aftermath of Planet Hulk, where we saw Scar on the planet Sakaar after everything went down. He hardly spoke as well. And it just makes it, if you see the guy just brooding and hardly saying a word, then when you do see him talk, it just kind of, I don't know, it hits harder. And it's plus I also worked with Corey and the editors. Like the first time I saw the lettering on that book, the balloons for Hulk were normal. And I kind of kicked up a fit about it. Like, that's not true. I did mention it though. I was like, could we, whenever I see Hulk on a team and they're all just talking and it's all just white balloons with black lines and Hulk's one of them, it just, in my mind's ear, he sounds like he's just like a guy. He's like an Endgame where he's talking with Mark Ruffalo's voice. I want this rumbly, godlike thing that sounds like stones rubbing together. Like, how do we make it sound like Hulk? What I want is for, the way Thor's lettering is always that the old timey, ye old whatever, verily kind of a font. I kind of want that for Hulk too. Not that style, obviously, but I want some kind of Hulk balloon style that is so dope and also so distinct that the other books have no choice but to use it too. And I want a book that looks, I want lettering that looks the way Hulk should sound in a way that other books miss it when they don't have it. The way that like Thor stuff, but to a greater degree. And that's the first way in which Corey really kind of showed it, like flexed his muscles. We saw a page from the first issue where the Hulk kind of like is on the transformation spread, and Hulk like was when you see his whole body at once for the first time. He says something like "Banner's mine," and Corey had like 20 different versions of him saying "Banner's mine" in different styles, and we got to kind of narrow it down. It was awesome, and that's how you bring in your people as part of the team, man. It was like a legit team book. It was awesome.
So when you're hearing Hulk talk in your head, what does he sound like? Is there a particular movie or something else that you're going back in your head going, that's what he is, or that's what he should sound like?
I hear that "Leave me alone" thing from the Incredible Hulk film.
Now, the Hulk is one of the ways that Hulk is different than every other superhero in comic books is that superheroes tend to run towards the fire. The Hulk is spending most of his life running away from, or trying to get away from things. Not maybe running away, but trying to keep away from others and issues, things of that nature. So how difficult is it to keep finding ways to get him involved in situations?
He doesn't run away, in my view. He kind of just stands there and scowls at you like, "Leave me alone," and they almost never do. And then he kicks everyone's ass, and then he walks away. But that's kind of what he's doing here. Like he'll give you a warning, like back off or put her down or whatever. Usually just like leave me alone. And then if it's a big dumb monster, then usually a fight ensues. Sometimes they do leave him alone, but he just doesn't want to. He doesn't want to be bothered. He doesn't want to know us. He doesn't want to be bothered, but he just wants to be left alone. He didn't ask for any of this. He just wants to walk away and just be by himself. So Charlie is kind of annoying for that reason. He didn't ask for Charlie either. Like he's, when they caught him in that first issue, and then he emerged and kicks everyone's ass, and he was like, "I told you to leave me alone," and he walks away. Charlie catches up to him. Is like, "You're the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I want to be like you." And after that, it's this weird push and pull where she wants to be with Hulk so bad, wants to be a sidekick. It's like, she thought she was the world's biggest Cap fan. But then she finally gets her way out of town, get her way away from home, and it's not Cap, it's Hulk. And she's like, "Oh my God, you're what I've been looking for this whole time." Banner is like, "You're crazy and an idiot. You need to get home before you're going to end up dead. You're going to get killed." She's like, "Screw you, man. I'm not here for you." Like she thinks he's lame because she sees her own weakness in Banner. She thinks Banner is pathetic because she sees him as weak, like the way she sees herself as weak. And she sees Hulk as the strongest thing there is. And that's why she wants to be like Hulk. So that kind of sets up this interesting, like, triangle of relationships where nobody likes each other. Charlie thinks Hulk is amazing. And Hulk, like, whereas Banner is trying to actively push her away, Hulk's just kind of annoyed. He's like, whatever. He just kind of walks away. And if she follows him, it's not his fault. But she also has this view in her mind, in her mind's eye, of what Hulk's supposed to be. She sees Hulk the Avenger.
Mm.
She's a He's a superhero, and he's also stronger than anybody, stronger than Thor, stronger than Cap, anybody. He's the man. So they're going to start getting in situations where you know she wants them to help, and Hulk's like, I didn't ask you to be here. Like, leave me alone. Leave me alone is kind of his go-to thing. Is whether he says it out loud or not, that's what he's always thinking. And but that's we're going to see everyone's got a character arc, right? So we're going to see characters change. We're going to see relationships change between the three of them, between Hulk, Banner, and Charlie. And when Eldest gets in the mix, as well as some other characters, we've already established that Betty's in it, so it is going to get a little more complicated.
So when you think about the Hulk, I mean, obviously, like you said, he's an Avenger. He has done the hero thing for a while. Does this version of Hulk have heroic qualities to him?
When we see him at the beginning, not really. He's got the heroic past, and he is capable of doing heroic things, but not because it's the heroic thing to do. Although I don't know, there is a scene we're about to see a scene. Man, shoot, I don't want to spoil the next issue, but he does a good thing in issue 3, and almost like by instinct, but it's not. I don't know. He's not. It's not a hero really. He's just like, fine. Like he'll do the good thing, but he'll kind of like scowl about it, like whatever. Like if there's no one else around, I guess I got to do this stupid thing.
So how much is Charlie sort of playing a little bit of the Rick Jones aspect of the Hulk? In other words, the audience surrogate, the one who is, or maybe the Lois Lane who damsel in distress. How much is that her role, and how much is going to be just there to kind of flesh out some aspects of the Hulk that readers recognize from, like, say, prior versions?
Completely. She's the audience perspective, in my opinion. Like she's the reader. She is a version, a certain kind of reader, a person that the nerd who sits in the back class with their hoodie up, when it's too hot for a hoodie. It's like, they just don't want to be seen. They just want to like the cool shit that they like and be left alone. And they're frustrated by their own weakness, by their own, because they're not the cool kid, or the frustrated student who doesn't really want to be where they are, and they see Hulk and they're like, "That's awesome." That's what Charlie is. That's what I was, kind of. I mean, it manifests in different ways, but I was also skinny, sick kid that was frustrated with my own weakness and by the situation I was in, powerlessness of my situation. And yeah, she hates Banner because Banner's her, and she loves Hulk because that's what she can never be and wants to be so bad.
Well, she also has that abuse history, which we all know Banner had. That's what manifested the Hulk in many versions. Is that the abuse history came out with the Hulk after the gamma rays and everything else. So is that how she's going to end up on? Does that bond her more with the Hulk because he's with the result of that, or is it bonds her more with Banner because he's the one who experienced it?
Both. Yeah, it's both. She relates to the being haunted by her dad for sure. Which of course we see in issue 2 as well. We know it's not really her dad, but she doesn't know that. She doesn't really know what's happening. Like, she doesn't really know what she's walked into, what she stepped into when she found help. But yeah, she has that bond with Banner being abused. But she tries to emulate Hulk. The thing with her dad is going to continue to be important. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about her. She's the audience perspective, and I got a lot of affection for her because I'm her in a lot of ways. If there was a Hulk, all right, I'm gonna do an overshare. So forgive me, whoever's watching and don't want to know anything about me. When I was real little, not like a baby, but like a small kid, I was getting beat up a lot at school, but also at home. And I remember, and we had like a sliding glass door at home that was blocked. Like the way he locked the door was there was this big axe handle that would lay in the track of the door. So when we were inside and we were locking it for the night, we put that thing in the door, which is a little silly because the whole door is just like floor to ceiling glass. But anyway, I had this very Charlie-esque fantasy as a little kid, like just having just got my ass kicked in again, and just thinking like I'm gonna get big and strong. And I had this like I'm gonna get big and I'm gonna eat a ton of food and get big and strong and pick up that axe handle and protect my mom. Like
Mm,
this super just like I can almost see the hulked out version of myself in that memory.
mm.
So that's kind of what I'm drawing on for Charlie. Charlie is like I'm gonna get bigger and stronger than you old bastard. I'm gonna pick up that thing and I'm gonna beat you to death with it. And I'm just like so angry. And that's what Charlie is. And I think there's a lot of, I suspect there's a lot of other readers out there that love, there's a certain kind of comic reader that just loves Hulk in particular. And I know he represents different things to different people, but I got a feeling I'm not the only one that feels that way about Hulk.
Well, when you think about the Hulk and the idea, we're going back to the idea of abuse. Obviously, Banner experienced the abuse. In some way, Hulk is Banner. Does Hulk acknowledge it as part of him or his psyche, or is he, because he is slightly a different personality, is he so separate that he doesn't consider that as part of his psyche or the history there for him?
I mean, he's not an idiot. He knows where Hulk comes from, but he also regards Hulk is this other thing. Like one of the most fascinating aspects of the Hulk Banner books is that they're different people living in the same brain. So it's Banner, I think, understands how Hulk came to be, but Hulk's his own thing now. I mean, they're
Mm.
not the same person. Like they're bonded in important ways, but they see each other as antagonists for right now. But who do sometimes still work together in some ways. Even in these arcs, you will see them work together. They all those characters have an arc to go on. And when I think about the Hulk's arc and Banner's arc, they're different ones. Like
Mm.
I do not treat them as the same person.
When you watch the movies, which are obviously are not the comic books, are different things. One of the reasons they make, like when they had Eric Bania as the Hulk, when they have Ruffalo as the Hulk, they make the Hulk look like the
Yeah.
person that's playing, which kind of suggests they're just a hulked out version of that individual on some level, or they're basically the same individual, one being Banner, one being the Hulk, but they give that same appearance to him. So that's obviously the suggestion they're leaning towards. So when you're thinking about your Hulk, that if you were to create the Hulk yourself, the Hulk would not look like the actor or Banner playing the Hulk at that moment.
No, visually they would. I mean, it's visually it would still look like that person hulked out.
Mm,
Um, and there are still clever little elements you can put in to express that they are on some level like way down deep. They
mm,
did come out of the same stuff.
mm,
They are certainly brothers. Um, but they do not want the same things. They do not see, like Banner and Hulk see Charlie through completely different lenses. They
mm.
see everyone they interact with, they see through different lenses. Um, Even Betty. Now, they both have great affection for Betty and for Harpy. Yeah, sorry. Um, but anyway, so yeah, there are things that they have in common, of course, but um, yeah, they want different things.
So in issue 2, you have an interesting line. This is not the exact quote, but something along these lines. Banner states that monsters have a way of finding each other.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are pulling these monsters to the Hulk?
Um, well, I mean, primarily they're being called by they're being driven by the call of Eldest. Eldest has reached out and basically taken control. The idea is that all monsters on Earth, we'll establish this more concretely later, but all monsters on Earth that come from Earth are descended from the mother of horrors.
Mm,
And Eldest is her literal eldest child. And she's being driven by the need to free her mom. And for reasons we have not yet seen, Hulk is for some reason very important to that whole thing. So she awakens. She while Mother of Horrors is on ice, Eldest is in charge, and she reaches out and just takes control of all monsters on Earth. Like Hulk is out there, the fractured son. Find him, bring him to me. He's important. And together we'll be family again, kind of a thing.
so was the Hulk going to exist before Banner kind of and the Gamma Raid, or was he always an aspect of the Mother of Horrors? Or is he, what I'm saying, like, or is he still created independently of her, but she still considers him part of her like brood, as it were?
Well, There's this. Did you read the one shot that Alex Pocknadell wrote called Time of Monsters?
Sorry, I have not actually. Sorry.
It's great. I highly recommend it. And it's actually important to my run.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it happened. I want to say it was towards the end of the Immortal Hulk run. I think they did some, it was an annual or something. I don't remember. But anyway, it showed a not prehistoric, but an ancient version of Hulk. There's like you see this fragment of gamma that looks like it's a meteorite or something. And everything goes horribly wrong. And it's the origin of a creature that is probably, it suggests that it's the character of Enkidu from the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Okay, that's awesome.
It's like this monstrous like bull man thing. And it's that version of Hulk has these big bony protrusions, almost like Doomsday kind of. Not as many as that, but like he has these big kneecap looking things and shoulder blades and like these big bull horns or ram horns, I guess. So there have been Hulks in the past, at least that one, and we see Enkidu again in issue one. If you see at the beginning that tomb in the rock that the British students bust into to like loot it, you see Enkidu's body in there, the big headless corpse. That's that same thing. So anyway, that all plays into Eldest's origins.
So does the Hulk have memories of these previous Hulks?
No,
No.
the Hulk that we know and love is strictly born of Banner's flesh, but it's about the Green Door. It's about the legacy of Gamma itself, like what Gamma is, where it comes from, and how it ties to the Green Door and the one below all and the one above all and all that stuff.
Now, when you're talking about Brother Deep and how do you describe him in, I think it's issue 2. He seems a little bit like a description of Lucifer. Would that be an accurate description, or how different is he from what we understand as the monotheistic religions?
He's not.
No, okay, totally different thing.
Yeah.
So
there's actually, so in the next issue, man, I can't wait till issue 3 drops. That book is so cool, and like the art is so great. God, the at the end, I have a page of back matter at the end called "The Remembrances of Eldest," and that talks more about Brother Deep.
So what can you tease anything now about what's going to happen? What you're going to say about him in the third, and how much of a antagonist he's going to be moving forward?
Antagonist, who's going to be?
Brother Deep.
Oh, I shouldn't spoil too much, but just remember that I said though it's going to be a lot of short arcs. All right, so I'm not planning on introducing a character. I mean, Eldest, of course, is quite important. She'll be there for the long haul, but generally, the stories that we're telling in Incredible Hulk, I want a series of constant jumping on points, where I want people to pick up, people who have already picked it up from issue 1 or 2 can be like, this is awesome. I can't wait for the next one. And hopefully we keep all those people. But then if, we got some late arrivals on issue 6 or 8 or 10 or 13 or wherever, they pick one up then. They're like, holy crap, I love this. And then we keep them too. I want people to be able to pick up one issue and read it, have it be done. And they're like, I loved it. I want more of this. So instead of being tying them in because, it's part 1 of 6 or part 7 of 12 or whatever, I want them to just keep coming back because it's awesome. So this book is going to be nothing but jumping on points. I'm going to try to keep, there's a story coming up that has 3 issues, but for the most part, I'd like the stories to be 1 or 2.
So, in issue 2, you had the followers of Brother Deep. So what do they see in Brother Deep? Why do they think that he will create a better world? Or what does the world look like in their opinion that Brother Deep would have power over?
I don't know, man. I don't spoil it. I'll say that the whole series, at least for the foreseeable future. I mean, maybe if this book goes a really long time, maybe at some point we can start doing a thing what happens in a city. It'd be kind of cool to see a whole arc happen, or like a trade worth of stories happening in New York or New Orleans or something. But generally it's going to be in the American South. And there are a lot of aspects of the American South I think are really beautiful, but also kind of creepy and cool in a very gothic kind of way. And issues 2 and 3 take place in Estill County, Kentucky, which
Very
is
cool
coal mining country that I know relatively well. So we see an old dead coal mining town, and in my experience, that kind of place has a strong church element. And so we see. I wanted to show a very. Like I want to show a primitive Baptist church, except it's not. They're not praying to Jesus. In the back of the church, they see a place where a cross used to be, and it has been taken down, and now there's this big coal, a rune drawn in coal that represents Brother Deep.
Very cool.
And we'll see why that is. We'll see why, how they came to worship Brother Deep like they do, and what's down there, and all that. But I don't want to spoil it too much. I did issues 2 and 3 are kind of an examination of Southern church, of church in towns like that, and what a big deal it is. But like I wrote 3 original hymns for those 2 issues, that all have just like a creepy slant to them. So instead of God in heaven, they're praying to God below.
Oh, it's very cool. That sounds absolutely awesome.
It's pretty fun, man. I've been reading them to my son. My son likes creepy stuff now. It's awesome because before he was kind of fearful by nature before, but now he's like, holy crap, I love this. And so I'm reading him all these creepy things. And I read him Hulk issue, 1 through 3. I read him some Hulk issues, and I have all those hymns. And the music is just like a few music notes here and there, but I know the melodies, so I sing all those tunes to him. It's been pretty fun.
I mean, you did a great job, dog. And I mean, it's a great looking book as well. And like I said, the art is amazing. You said Nick Klein's the artist, and he's killing it. So what else can you hint about what's coming up next in the Hulk before we go to the Green Lantern a little bit?
Oh man, let's see. Yeah, let's see. I've got a couple arcs of original monsters. Man, it's dark. I'm glad that fans have been into it because it's cool that I think we're trying to we're not even trying to. It's kind of naturally out horroring Immortal Hulk. It's scarier in my opinion, and it gets scarier still. And I'm glad that people have embraced that because it gets real scary, real dark. In fact, there's an arc coming up. I'm not sure I can read it, my boy. But I will say that Nick's art is so incredibly detailed, and I mean every page is a goddamn cover, and it's just not realistic to do a page a day when the quality is that high. So we are bringing in another artist to fill in when Nick is getting caught up. So Nick is drawing issues 1 through 3, and then there's an arc on issues 4 and 5 that is Travel Foreman. And he's the one who did the backup in the Hulk annual that kind of teed this up. And he also did the art for Animal Man, if you know that series, with Jeff Lemire. Just an amazing command of like body horror type stuff. So I'm writing specifically to the artists that I'm working with.
That's cool.
So when I was fleshing out the arcs that are coming up, I talked to Nick. I was like, so like it seems like these would be the ones that you want to do. He's like, oh yeah, dude, I need this one. Like this one with this one character. I better be fucking doing that one. I'm like, okay, it's yours. But I drew something else for Travel that is somewhat inspired by his work that I love so much on Animal Man. So he's doing issues 4 and 5. Then Nick is doing 6, 7, 8, and that's that 1 3-issue arc I mentioned. And then we're bringing Travel back on for this other thing. So this Travel is going to be if unless Travel gets some other thing that you can't turn down at some point. Because I mean, this is how comics work. Like somebody gets offered a job, and if they say yes, they're locked in for however many months or years.
Yeah.
So I mean, this could all change. So it's possible that we could lose Travel at some point to some other opportunity. But if Travel continues to take the gigs, Travel is going to be the other guy in the shoot.
That's cool. And so I just want to go over a little bit about Green Lantern a little bit, because the last time I interviewed you, you talked about your love of John Stewart. And now you get to the backstories of Green Lantern starring John Stewart. So how has that equaled your expectations of writing the character?
It's great. I mean, I just keep getting spoiled with these amazing artists. I mean, Montos has drawn it, and he's doing amazing too. Like he's got the unenviable task of like I'm trying to show a Green Lantern that is an architect, but also a Marine. We see a lot of really personal family moments with him and his mom. He really has to do it all in this book, and he's doing it. He's like there's horror in that book too, because that's just kind of how I'm doing things now. It looks like they're up against the Radiant Dead, which are kind of like Lantern zombies, kind of. Like it's more complicated than that, but there's all this really great opportunity for cool, like high fantasy type scary things. But then we'll see John Stewart making constructs, and we see the lines of the blueprint inside the thing he's making, or even engineering type stuff where he's making, instead of just a giant fist that's like his own fist, we see one made out of all these crazy machines.
Mm.
And he's just crushing all that. But anyway, I'm trying to give Montos direction that shows all of John's elements visually on the page, but I'm also trying to express him that way as I write his dialogue and the story itself. I want people to see him as more than just the ex-Marine, because I've seen that version a lot. I want to see the ex-Marine who's also who understands the concept of higher service, of like being called to service, of being part of the organization that's big and old and with a greater mission statement and all that. But he's also a brother and a son and part of the Justice League, and there's all these elements to him that I want to show. So hopefully, I want this book. Ideally, I want this book to be one of the kind of the standard bearer arcs for John Stewart that really define him as a character, where anyone can see him after this and know who he is.
Now, is there a chance that this is going to spin off into his own title, or is it going to remain backup story? So
it's his own. He's getting his own series. Sorry, I saw this what you were talking about. No, he's in the backup for Green Lantern 1 through 3.
Yeah, that's what I meant. But is it going to become its own?
Yeah, no, it
series?
ties it kicks off. The third one that's coming out after Night Terrors kicks into his like Green Lantern War Journal #1.
Oh, awesome! All right, I don't think I knew that. All right, fantastic.
Yeah, that comes out in September, and then it continues on.
That is awesome. So, I mean, because obviously the current line is being interrupted by Night Terrors at the moment, and I don't believe. And Night Terrors is right now been Sinestro and Jordan. John Stewart doesn't have a Night Terrors storyline. Doesn't sound like. If he did, what would he be his Night Terror?
I don't want to answer that off the cuff. Well, I mean, I guess I could. It's not like I have to actually write the thing after that. Let's see. I think that would potentially. I think actually a war story would fit in nicely with that one. Now, I don't. Sometimes I kind of push back against the characterization of like I didn't even pick the name War Journal. Like that was not the title I chose. I didn't come up with the name. I mean, I didn't give him another name either. It's not like they didn't shoot me down for one, but that is the perception of John. So I think actually a story, something that happened to him overseas, would actually be a good one for that. And I try to work in some lantern-y, architect-y elements to it, but primarily that would be a war story. I could see him being haunted by some things that happened, and maybe even in the nightmare have it tie into other failings, like tie into his sister who's now gone, or something else. But yeah, I would say a war story at its core would be a good one for that.
Like I said, because you have now reached like the upper level of now current writers, especially for the titles you've been working on, does it affect how you approach things because now you can kind of write what you want to do at this point?
Oh, no, actually, I still have the same gratitude for doing these characters. I mean, I've given some thought to. I mean, they put me on Superman and Action Comics the same day, and with the understanding it was not going to last forever. Like I was teeing up the Superman book for the Jonathan Kent book that with Tom Taylor that was already underway. They needed like an arc before he began, so I wrote that. But Action Comics that's the book, man. That's the one I always wanted. I'd rather. There's kind of this conventional wisdom in comics that like Batman is more popular, like slash sells better than detective, sells better than Superman, does better than action, does better than whatever. That is generally how it goes. I just don't care about that, man. Like Action Comics is Action Comics.
Yeah.
I'd rather write that than Superman, than friggin' X-Men, than whatever, like I'd kind of rather write detective than Batman. I mean, I probably shouldn't say that shit out loud, but again, what a storied, legendary title to be on. I would just, it would be such an honor. Anyway, obviously it's not to write any of those books I mentioned or 100 other ones, but I thought about being on those books. I'm like, well, crap, is it all just downhill now? Because I got Action Comics and I'm loving it. At some point, I mean, I've been on that book almost 3 years. At some point, probably soon, I'm going to come off of it because that's just how they do things. They move around resources,
Yeah.
At some point, they're going to take me off that book, and I'm not going to want to go. But what do I do next? I mean, honestly, is it downhill? That's a real question. And it sure doesn't feel like it. I mean, they gave me John Stewart, and I am loving it. And it's a huge honor to get to write that character. He's like the consummate superhero. I mean, it's weird to say that in the same breath as Superman and Batman, but he's the superhero that got the ring and took his mask off and threw it away. Like, I don't need this.
Mm-hmm.
What's more badass than that?
Yeah.
Not even Superman does that. Even he has a secret identity. So in a lot of ways, plus he's got so many elements to him. He did have a military service, but he never intended to do it forever. He's the architect. He's the great leader, the great warrior, the great thinker, the great builder. He's like everything a Green Lantern should be. And I have strong feelings about that character and how I want him to be portrayed. And I see some holes in the game, some holes in his character that we could like make him a little more complicated. Huge honor. If they were to give me Aquaman, Jesus, man, that's like another world.
Yeah.
We're not even seeing. You know what my pet peeve is when we see an Aquaman book and the people that you see, and I understand that, you've only got so many pages, but when the only people you see are like just dudes swimming around in armor,
Yeah.
and the buildings all look like kind of plasticky, and there's no sense of like architectural style there. They're all just speaking English. Their weapons all look very normy and just could have come from anywhere. Like, this is another planet practically.
Right.
I want to see some crazy, crazy shit. I want to see Dune. Anytime I see something that's not, in America, I want to see that on the page. Show me what's different. Show me the history. Show me the roots of this place. Like a house, just put a house on the ground. There's foundations. There's stuff in the walls. There's, I don't know. I just want to see more. So, I mean, getting to do a book like Aquaman would be a huge honor, just because I get to contribute to that mythology in a big, meaningful way.
Now,
so yeah, it does not. Yeah, I don't know. I still have the same gratitude and the same kind of excitement to write these characters, especially honestly when it's a character that I don't know that well.
Now, when people write for Aquaman, usually Aquaman comes in three different flavors. There's superhero Aquaman, there's usually military political intrigue Aquaman, and then there's like the supernatural mythology, like you know what I'm saying, like the mythical Atlantis kind of swords and sorcery kind of Aquaman. If you were writing Aquaman, which one would you lean into?
I mean, this sounds bullshitty, but I mean, the answer is all three, really, right? I mean, those are all aspects of who he is. It's like the John Stewart thing. He's a superhero, but he's also an ex-Marine. I'm careful to say Marine, not soldier, because Marines and soldiers hate each other. And everyone always talks about soldier, but it's not the same thing. So be careful with that. Soldier means army. Anyway, I digress. We don't actually hate each other, but there is some rivalry. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, architect, superhero, son of a civil rights leader, ex-Marine, all that. Like, there's a lot to him. I mean, I would lean into the King Arthur of it all for sure, in an Aquaman book. But he is also in the Justice League, and there's also a little bit of like stepchild rivalry with Atlantis, with the rest of the world trying to be established as a real superpower, as they should be. So I would want to bring some of that in there too. I want to, without putting plot or setting in front of character, it's always going to be about character primarily. So I would try not to let this aspect run away with me, but I want to see more Atlantis and establish why it's so awesome. Establish what makes it awesome, what makes it different, what makes it so, like, how do we know it's so old? I did that one. My first DC book ever was an Aquaman annual. And I did as much of that as I could in that little space that I had. And I tried to work in a little bit about the technology, about how it worked, and about what Arthur would do if he had the means that I gave him in that story. Work in some Greek names and remind people that it all comes from Greece, and I don't know. There's just a lot of stuff that I wanted to work in there, and I got as much of it in as I could. I did go back there again briefly in Action Comics. So, I mean, am I supposed to be like, if they take me out, let's say they take me out of Action and put me on Aquaman or somebody else, like whatever, something about the Flash's kids or something. Like, is that supposed to be a letdown? It's still, I don't know. I'm just very grateful to get to do this stuff, and I love the DC universe, and I'm just gonna keep doing the best books I can. And they know what I could do now. DC knows what I like to do, how I do things, how I tend to write. So now they know I'm a known quantity, and I feel like they'll invite me to do things in which they want those particular muscles flexed.
Well, Mr. Johnson, please come back on the show when it's time to talk Green Lantern War Journal. It's been an absolute honor to have you back on my show, as it always.
Thanks, brother. Good to see you. You too.